The Absolute Universe is the coolest thing DC has done in a while, sort of like Marvel's Ultimate Universe, but frankly a lot better. The Absolute Universe was born out of and infused with dark side energy, telling the stories of alternate versions of the heroes of the DCU where things are a bit different and something is missing. Batman is not rich, Superman was not raised by the Kents, and Wonder Woman was raised in hell rather than Themyscira. I'm loving these comics, especially Batman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter, but even the worst Absolute comic, Green Lantern, is still interesting. Reading these comics about these alternative takes on these characters, I sometimes find myself thinking about how a certain decision in regards to one of these characters, and anything from design to lore to story, are things I really wouldn't mind they bring over to the mainline DC universe. And, well, first and foremost, straight up animated adaptations of these comics, like Invincible, would be great, but what I wanted to focus on was anything the DCU specifically could take from the Absolute Universe to incorporate into their versions of their characters. Now, the DCU Superman is already established, and the DCU Green Lanterns are about to be. They're already fully written into their own TV show, but that does leave us with Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Martian Manhunter. There's a world of possibility of what they can adapt, and I'd like to see some of it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, become a member in the Noble tier above for early access to videos, or the King tier for a special shout out. Thanks to these members for the extra support. Let me know what you'd like to see in the comments down below, and let's begin. So like I said, Superman and Green Lantern are already established. It also just so happens that these are my two least favorite of the Absolute lines, even if they have incredible art and some interesting ideas. With Green Lantern, there's honestly nothing I could see them adapting from Absolute Green Lantern. It's too different and so far has been too slow of a burn for the lore to be fully explained anyway. What we do know suggests something entirely different from the classic emotional spectrum, and we have not seen the classic emotional spectrum in live action yet anyway, so let's get to that first and get around to Absolute Green Lantern in a couple decades or something. Superman is similar. The Superman of the DCU is already entirely established, and Absolute Superman is very different, far too different to fit any part of DCU Superman. One thing that kind of can be adapted is the Soul AI. Absolute Superman's armor and red dust cape are controlled by a Kryptonian AI and companion of his named Soul. Kal and Soul have a bit of a close relationship, as for a long time, Soul was Kal's only companion. Now, that aspect of it cannot be adapted into the DCU since that just wouldn't fit Superman's origin, and considering we're seeing Supergirl's origin in a 2026 movie, I don't think Soul existed when the movie was written, so Soul can't be Supergirl's AI either. However, it can simply be implemented as an AI in the Fortress of Solitude, or maybe if we want to differentiate Supergirl a bit, we could give her that red dust cape and then give her the Soul AI as a Supergirl supporting character. It's a bit of a stretch, but I liked Soul and I didn't think anything else could fit even remotely. But alright, let's get into the meat and bones of this video, the heroes who have not yet been fully adapted into the DCU, like Batman. Absolute Batman is doing absolute numbers, both in sales and before that on the internet, initially just based on the design. The design is bonkers. Bruce is 6'9" and 400 pounds of pure muscle, with a bat logo so large it looks like a brick, spikes, long bat ears, and a unique cape with bat-like appendages. The design was frankly incredible, and the comic also lived up to the hype. Right now, it's easily my favorite. Now, obviously, for a more baseline Batman like the DCU one should be, most of the design elements are too insane and at times even unrealistic in live action, but not everything. The huge logo, as it turns out, is a removable, sharp metal piece that attaches to a stick turning into a bat axe. Hardcore, and something that I'd love to see be a part of Batsuits going forward. The Batman did something similar, which might have even inspired Absolute Batman, but for the DCU Batman, a large bat that can turn into an axe would be so cool. But what I really love, and this is the one thing that I would want them to incorporate into the mainline DC universe in the comics as well, is the cape. Reading Absolute Batman, I was kind of blown away by this cape, as while I always kind of got Batman's whole looks like a giant bat motif, his normal cape does not always entirely convey that. His silhouette looks like Batman. He's scary because he's Batman, but I wouldn't say he looks like a giant bat per se, he looks like Batman. With this cape, however, he looks far more bat-shaped and has a silhouette that is mostly indistinguishable from a giant bat. The cape is also tactical, which in the comics was never really a thing until the Arkham games came around and kind of solidified how useful the cape can be. But here it's a bit differently. It's incorporated into his fighting and makes it so that he looks like a bat while fighting, while also being used to glide and grapple. I love this cape because it's both the most effective and useful a Batman cape has ever been, while also being visually the most interesting. It's genius and frankly not something I want to see locked behind absolute adaptations. There's been a dozen live action Batman. This new one will be in direct competition with another more grounded one, so why not give this Batman the Bat Axe and this bat-like cape? I'm kidding, he obviously can't look exactly like this. This is not possible for a real human. This is like a CGI Hulk creature, but also it's a direct adaptation of the Absolute Universe. My idea would be to make an amalgamation suit of a few different suits, but include the cape of the Absolute Universe. I would go with the axe too, but it does not look good with a little logo. It looks like a wand rather than an axe. There's honestly nothing outside of the design of Batman that I could incorporate into the DCU, but what about his supporting characters? Beyond Batman himself, I really like the Absolute Killer Croc design and story. Wayland being Bruce's friend before being turned into a monster and an ally against Bane was pretty awesome. Rich Bruce and Wayland being friends makes a lot less sense, but the design can stay. But then again, we haven't actually gotten a good Killer Croc design in live action anyway, so maybe they're better off doing something more classic. Maybe an Absolute Killer Croc could be adapted later down the line. Black Mask has been given enough adaptations at this point that if he appears in the DCU, maybe he could take more inspiration from his Absolute counterpart. What differentiates him is his mask, which is weird and creepy, and the fact that instead of a regular mob boss, he is the leader of a global movement known as the Party Animals, who intend on destabilizing cities like Gotham while working for the Joker. If used in the DCU, why not mix some Absolute elements in? He'd still be a mob boss, but his gang would be called the Party Animals, and he'd wear this more unique mask. I think both would be more interesting than adapting a regular black mask again. While there was always hype around Absolute Batman from the get-go, where it really got good was with the introduction of Bane. Now I like the classic Bane. He has a cool design and is responsible for one of the most iconic Batman moments ever, but Bane was good in Nightfall, and ever since writers have struggled to live up to that. Well, the Arkham Origins writers succeeded, but now so has Scott Snyder on Absolute Batman, as he and the artist Nick Dragotta managed to turn Bane into one of the most terrifying threats ever put in any piece of Batman media, absolutely dwarfing the already giant Batman. Absolute Bane is a nigh unstoppable menace and massive abomination. The story around him was absolutely epic and concludes with, again, one of the coolest things I've seen in comics, one of the best fight scenes I've read in a comic in a very long time. Now, the regular Nightfall Venom-induced Bane has not been adapted into live action yet, or not well, but a version of Bane was an iconic villain in The Dark Knight Rises, and that's close enough. I don't think if Bane was adapted just like the comics, it'd be very exciting. As a protagonist or an antagonist to Deathstroke in the rumored Bane and Deathstroke movie, sure, but as the main villain of a Batman movie, I don't think so. The backbreaking has been done, it just wouldn't be interesting anymore. So if they ever want to go down the route of using Bane as a main villain again, I'd use Absolute Bane as the basis for the design and even the backstory of being used as a lab rat in some sort of secret facility, which in the Absolute Universe is called Arkham, obviously a reference to Arkham Asylum. In the DCU, with there being an actual Arkham Asylum, they could just rename it to whatever, it doesn't really matter. But with the backstory, the design, and making him an absolutely unstoppable, uber strong monster with body horror elements, I think Bane could be made a lot more interesting that way. Finally, for Batman, it's actually the first Absolute comic to get a spin-off as well, Absolute Catwoman. Like Batman himself, if they want to include Catwoman in the DCU, which I'm sure they will, she'd need to be differentiated from her the Batman counterpart. Right now, that can be accomplished by simply casting somebody who looks differently and giving them a classic Catwoman suit, one that's actually a costume and not something that's makeshift. But I have to believe that if Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman returns, probably in a spin-off show or maybe in the third Batman movie since she's not returning in the second, she's surely going to get an updated Catwoman costume, maybe something that's closer to the comics. If that happens, the DCU Catwoman will have to have a different looking suit. There are many Catwoman designs to choose from, but one of the options is certainly Absolute Catwoman, which is pretty much the same from the neck down, but the mask is wholly different. This glass globe that covers half her face with large, cute cat ears attached to it. It looks a lot better than I would have expected if you had described it to me. I wouldn't mind for this to be the DCU's Catwoman design, design just to set it apart. Okay, so that's Absolute Batman, which I know is mostly just design that I covered, but honestly from the Absolute universe, because the DCU is going to be more close to the mainline universe, there's not much from backstory and characterization and all that we can include without changing the character too drastically. Design, however, is a bit more superficial. If there's one hero I think they should take the most inspiration from the Absolute universe, it's definitely not Batman, it's Wonder Woman. The DCU Wonder Woman definitely should not adapt Absolute Diana's backstory and origin of being separated from the Amazons and raised by Cersei in Hell. I mean, the Clay Baby origin has not been adapted yet, so just do that. However, in terms of the character herself, I don't think I've ever enjoyed Wonder Woman in comics as much as this. In Absolute Wonder Woman, Diana is portrayed as very wise, very kind, and very thoughtful. She has this distinct nose that gives her a very specific look that makes her feel like she has less of a generic face, which is a problem with a lot of characters in comic books. In general, I love this Diana's design. The red, black, and silver color scheme is a bit different from her classic color scheme, but I really like it. I think it fits, and I wouldn't mind if it's used as the DCU Wonder Woman's primary color scheme, at least for a time. I say for a time because we've actually kind of seen the DCU Wonder Woman, and she is clearly seen sporting the classic leotard suit complete with blue and gold, but I think that was more of a placeholder suit since they haven't really locked down a DCU Wonder Woman design yet. And honestly, I'd like to see this one, not just the color scheme, but most of the design. I think it's one of the better modernizations of the Wonder Woman design, finding a perfect balance between feminine and powerful, between princess and warrior. And while the leotard suit is a classic, it is a lot more fitting for a comic book or animation, but it's less fitting for live action. They definitely wouldn't do a direct adaptation, but elements of this design can certainly be included, like the large double W's, the wrap pants and straps, and even the red arm tattoo. I'd take any of it. This is an awesome design. Beyond the design, Absolute Wonder Woman is set apart by her insanely large sword, which I definitely wouldn't incorporate since Diana's primary weapon should be the lasso, but also Absolute Wonder Woman has mild magical abilities, is familiar with potions and spells, and prayers to the gods that work. When she uses these abilities, her eyes turn red. I wouldn't turn her into Zatanna or anything, like magic shouldn't be her primary weapon, but Diana being able to scrap together some sort of magical solution to a problem that she can't punch her way out of would be cool. Maybe she was taught something in Themyscira, maybe they use a bit of magic. Diana actually used a combination of that sword and magic to fight a giant mythical monster called the Tetracide, which is something I'd love to see in live action. Wonder Woman fighting a large mythical monster that no other hero would really ever come up against. It was like godly, it was biblical. I want to see Wonder Woman fighting that. I doubt Dr. Poison will ever appear in the DCU since she was in the first Wonder Woman movie and isn't exactly a major villain, but if she does ever appear, she should be based on her absolute counterpart, a gas-based entity contained in a suit of armor, which is a lot more unique than just, a regular woman who makes poisonous gases. The Greek gods who have appeared all have these really unique designs that I really like. They could certainly be the basis for their DCU counterparts, while also taking from Wonder Woman Historia. Overall though, I really like the visual language of Absolute Wonder Woman, and whenever they're adapting something from the Greek god pantheon, or myth, or magic, or whatever, I would love it if the Wonder Woman movie takes inspiration from that. Moving on, The Flash is another one of those very different from the mainline universe. There's no Speed Force, it's not set in Central or Keystone City, and neither Jay nor Barry were ever the Flash. Wally being the main Flash is one thing that I would like to see, not in this capacity, but there are also many smaller additions and changes to either the mythos or the Flash or the backstory of Wally West that I can see them incorporating. The Flash suit is a really cool reinvention of the suit that, while I wouldn't like it as the main suit, can be the perfect design for a transitional costume for Wally between Kid Flash and the Flash, or maybe simply his Kid Flash suit. If nothing else, the logo with the lightning bolt split in two can be Wally's logo even as the Flash. Maybe that could be the one thing that, whenever you see the Flash in animation, can set him apart as being the DCU Flash, like how with Superman he has the Kingdom Come logo but it's yellow, which is very much unique to the DCU. For the last 2 or 3 decades or so, the Flash's powers have been depicted using lightning. Before that, there were only speed lines. In the Absolute Universe, speed is depicted in a very new way. There's red lightning as opposed to yellow or blue, but there are also these broken up red bars that kind of resemble Darkseid's Omega beams, sparking the theory that has not yet been confirmed that Absolute Flash is a living Omega beam. We'll find out soon enough if that's true or not, but regardless, it is a really cool visual that effectively depicts speed in a very unique way that isn't just lightning. I think it'd work especially well in what I think the Flash should get in the DCU, which is a 3D animated movie in the style of Spider-Verse or something similar, but it could work in live action as well. Wally's backstory is given a bit of an update. Instead of being the child of abusive parents who escaped to live with his aunt, Wally is the angsty teenage son of a widower US military colonel and the commander of a US military base called Fort Fox. Wally's mom being dead would probably be too similar to Barry, but his father's role as a colonel, moving around all the time from base to base, could make for a good way to explain why he moved in with Iris, while also allowing Rudy and Wally's mother to be supporting characters. Wally does admittedly kind of lack a supporting cast, since unlike Barry, he doesn't have a real job, and most of the supporting cast is his wife, his kids, and other speedsters. His parents should definitely be a lot more involved. A couple of the rogues got makeovers that I really like, and since most of the rogues were adapted into the CW show, these new versions might be more interesting. Captain Boomerang with his high-tech slick green boomerangs, Weather Wizard with a big white wizard beard, and Heatwave being a lava monster. That last one is the one I would like to see the most. Finally, Absolute Martian Manhunter. Well, there's also Absolute Green Arrow coming out, but it seems like it'll be Roy Harper who will be the Green Arrow, so who knows how different that will be. So we're ending with Absolute Martian Manhunter, which is maybe the best Martian Manhunter comic of all time, but it's also probably the most different from the original of the Absolute titles, maybe alongside Green Lantern. The Martian is not a Martian, he's not John Jones, he has a completely revamped one-eyed design, and John Jones is a human being with a family. There's not much we can take, since while I like the design, the Prime Universe Martian Manhunter should definitely be based on the classic design. That said, there has never really been a consistent, true Martian form, and I think this could maybe be it, although maybe not. Maybe if that's all we're doing with it, we could save it for an Absolute Martian Manhunter adaptation. At the same time, this version of Agent John Jones can be the basis for John's alter ego. Maybe he's even married with a kid, which I think could be an interesting development not seen before. If Clark and Lois can have a kid, who says Jean and a human can't? Physically, but also Martian Manhunter kind of needs an expanded supporting cast. This could definitely help. More than anything though, for Martian Manhunter, the DCU should absolutely be influenced by the psychedelic, colorful, mind-bending visuals of Absolute Martian Manhunter. Like with the Flash, this is something that would look the best in animation, but also has huge potential in live action. These would be visually interesting mind battles that play with metaphysical elements you cannot do on the physical plane. In the end, the Absolute Universe offers a lot, but if I have to choose one thing from each comic, I'd go with the cape from Absolute Batman, the Soul AI from Absolute Superman, the mythical designs from Absolute Wonder Woman, the speed effects from Absolute Flash, the psychedelic colors from Absolute Martian Manhunter, and nothing from Absolute Green Lantern. Legit couldn't think of anything. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.